Talking of royalties, how did/does it work with physical releases? That's how I came across Daft Punk for the first time ever. Online one-to-one sessions, something you are looking into. I think a job should never be to judge with their political beliefs, even if it's a DJ gig. There was a nice little story from Grandad Dom for you all. Hey guys, welcome to the Kane audio vlog. It is Friday, it's time for another Ask Me Anything. Usual rules apply, comment anything you want below this video and I'll get back to you in next week's video. Before I look at last week's video, is there any house admin? There must be. Let's have a look. Oh, it is now just under 90 days until my album comes out. And for those of you that are watching this channel for the first time, it is my first full artist album, and even more importantly, the first release launching a new record label. On that note, thank you to everyone that has been submitting demos and whatever to the label 5302 Recordings. Yeah, there's been some really strong work coming through. As expected, there's a lot of work that's definitely too clubby or too energetic or too clearly made for DJs type thing, but still has been great work. So yeah, so thanks to everyone that's been sending stuff through. What else is there? House admin, it's just I'm guessing, you know, you guys, I'm assuming most of you are now starting to get back to work and kind of trying to find a routine. We're doing the same in this household, obviously with a new baby as well, so everything's kind of a bit up in the air and a bit messy at the minute, but we are getting there. Talking of 5302, I did listen to some tracks yesterday and added a few to a holding place for the 5302 playlist. Let's have a look. We're up to an hour and a half, so yeah, I should imagine over the next week that playlist will get updated, because I like to keep the main playlist about 2.5 hours ish. So yeah, so that should get updated over the next 7 days at some point. If you don't already follow the Spotify playlist, please do. There'll be a link below. I think it's under the 5302 stuff link. Yeah, it's like a Linktree website. Yeah, I think that is it for house admin. I've hit record on these cameras now and had complete brain freeze. It's still early in the morning. It's 8:30 in the morning, and I am filming it this early today because yesterday, so this is, I suppose, comes under house admin as well. So I'm still trying to get through not only just routine back to life stuff, I'm trying to do that in a new studio as well, and that's this place, the Cabin in the Garden. And yesterday was 31 degrees centigrade. I don't know what that is in Fahrenheit, like a bajillion or something. All I know is 28 degrees centigrade is 82 degrees Fahrenheit. So you do the math, probably like 100. I don't know. Whatever the case, though, it was hot yesterday. And for anyone that isn't from the UK, when it's hot in the UK, it's also humid. So it's usually not great. Like if you go to Spain or somewhere on the, especially if it's coastal, then it's lovely dry air at 31 degrees and that's great. But in the UK it's just sticky and muggy. But for some reason, we're a country that doesn't have air conditioning anywhere. So, go figure. However, so I'm sort of getting teething problems and whatever with this cabin, where it's really heavily insulated, and that's great. So right now it's like, I don't know what the temperature is outside, but it's 25 degrees in here. It's probably a bit warmer outside, about 28. So at 8:30 in the morning, this cabin, because it's well insulated, it takes a while to catch up with the weather outside. However, yesterday it got crazy hot in here. I think it was like 35, 36 degrees at one point, because obviously I've got equipment on. So I've got big blackout acoustic curtains and whatever, so that's all good. But doors open, windows open, and it just wasn't making any difference because there was just zero wind outside. So I thought today's going to be the same. Therefore, I'm filming early in the morning. There was a nice little story from Grandad Dom for you all. Right, let's get on with this. I don't think there is much to get on with this week. No, there's only a few comments I can see. Starting at the top, Andrew Hollis, setup, high five. Talking of royalties, how did/does it work with physical releases? When a CD/LB/tape is purchased in a shop on the high street or online, how does the money get back to the artist? Do record shops/online stores etc. report back sales to the distributor, and then that gets passed to the label? Say if a shop has 3 copies of an album, have they already paid for that even if the copies haven't been sold? Does the artist get the money regardless if the album is actually sold? That's a good question, and I'm not 100% sure that I know the answer, to be honest with you. Do you know what? I honestly can't remember what the deal was, because all I remember is I would send the files to my distributor, who would then get it pressed up and everything for me, and then the shops would get stocked. And then a year later, I'd get royalties. And I don't know if I ever stopped to question how that worked. As far as I'm aware, the shop pays a set fee. So your cut comes out one of the very base prices of the wholesale price. As an artist, you don't get a cut of retail price, so that wholesale price is set by, well, between the label and distributor. So the shop buys that stock at wholesale price, and the cut is given to the artist from there, and the shop will generally buy however many they think they can sell. So it's kind of tricky, because for major labels, so I'll give you an example. An old flatmate of mine, shout out to Nick, he used to work for Polydor, and he used to work in sales. This is going back late 90s, early noughties ish, and he used to work in sales, and his job was essentially to go to, I'll say, HMV Oxford Street, London, and sweet talk the manager into buying whatever. So I know he worked on Eminem's first album, and singles, I think. So he will have basically gone up to the manager and gone, this guy Eminem, he's going to be hot, he's going to be amazing, you're going to need to stock up on this, you need to get posters, you need to do this, that and the other. And he'd sort of, basically there'd be a bit of sweet talking going on, and you'd sort out a deal. I remember trying to negotiate a record to go on end of aisle. So for example, you could negotiate with certain shops where your CD or vinyl or whatever went in the shop. So it could be, you could get stuck down in the bottom shelf. Obviously, you're going to be in alphabetical order for a lot of releases, but there's always a position at the end of aisle, much like if you go to your supermarket now. For those of you that have never been to a record shop, I guess there's lots of people out there that have never been to a record shop. I don't know. But anyway, much like a supermarket, you'll have on the end of the aisle, you'll have the promotional stuff and whatever. And certainly with like HMV and Oxford Street, you'd have listening posts. And again, because this was before everything was digital and you could just listen to whatever you want on Spotify or whatever, this is an age where everything came on a physical format. And I remember, for example, that's how I came across Daft Punk for the first time ever. Their Homework album, I just happened to walk into HMV Oxford Street, I think it was Oxford Street, on the day of release. When was that? December 1996? Something like that. I remember going into HMV and they had, say, 15, 20 listening posts, and they were literally columns in the shop with a CD player, and you just pressed next on the tracks. And I think maybe there was a disc changer on some of them at some point. I don't know if there was at the Daft Punk time. I'm pretty sure it was just Daft Punk. I remember seeing it going, Daft Punk sounds cool, and having a listen and going, wow, what is this? Yeah, a bit of a life-changing album that was. So I bought it there and then. So instantly you can see they were on Virgin EMI, I think. So Virgin EMI had obviously negotiated that position, I guess, to be front and center listening post and whatever. And let's be honest, it worked. It worked on me. I mean, so this is kind of a thing. I think actually this is becoming an interesting point when it comes to marketing for record labels. I think Daft Punk Homework album was, it's a legendary album. We all know it. I don't even need to begin to big it up because you all know the album. So the quality was already in place, and I think that's the important bit that a lot of people miss out these days, is that didn't get front and center of shop just because Virgin EMI had the money and they could pay for it. Don't get me wrong, it helped, but it was already an amazing album, and it just needed the exposure, the attention for people to see it. And I'm using that word exposure very purposefully. Now, you're going to be sold a lot of gigs. You're going to be, that's probably the right word to use, sold gigs. You're going to be sold a lot of propositions in your music career for exposure. It's going to be great exposure, they'll tell you. We can't afford to pay you this, but it'd be great exposure. You're going to hear that a million times in your career. I would say 1 in 100, perhaps even 1 in 1,000 times, 1 in 100 times, is it ever actually good exposure? Just keep that in mind. But also, you need to question, is exposure what you need right now? Because if you're just at the very beginning of your musical journey and you're still learning to produce, and you're in a position, I sort of define people's skill sets or positions by how quickly they hate their own music. If you're still in the early days of your journey or career and you produce a track and you love it, and then 2 weeks later you're like, this is old, this is terrible, I've moved on so much in that 2 weeks, then if you feel like you've moved on production wise in 2 weeks, then you're really in the very early stages of your career. So do you really want exposure at that point? Is exposure even a good thing at that point? I would argue it's not good, because in 2 weeks time you're going to look back at, let's say the exposure is national TV, okay, and you're going to be front and center in the spotlight, and 2 weeks later you're going to look back at that and go, oh, I wish I hadn't played that track or whatever, I've moved on so much further now. That's not a good position to be in, because it means you're no longer doing that thing that people have just been exposed to. So when it comes to exposure, you've got to be careful. And coming back to the Daft Punk thing, you know, and record stores and royalties and all of that, I always used to talk about record labels being what I called the shit filter, because they would filter the shit. So for anybody back then in the late 90s, for anybody to produce an entire album, it had to be mixed professionally, it had to be mastered professionally, it had to be engineered. You'd usually need at least a week in a professional studio to be hired. There would be A&R managers, there would be sales assistants, there would be all of these people that need paying. There was huge costs involved. You were looking at, just even on a DIY kind of level, you're looking at around 10 grand investment for every release for just a single to get pressed on vinyl. You'd be looking at about 10,000 copies of vinyl, you know, as a test the water type thing. So there was money involved. Obviously the returns were much better, so it was an easier investment to make. I'm not taking anything away from that. But the fact is to get an album into a shop back then, you had to be there had to be a certain quality control level, there had to be a certain skill. So to get yourself on the end of aisle, you really, you know, for a label to try and push for you as an artist to be on the end of aisle, you had to be a pretty good artist. They had to be pretty confident that they were going to sell your work, and that your work was going to become popular. So to be front and center of the shop, I think, you know, they really had to go, this has to be huge. You know, they're investing a lot of money into that. Someone like Daft Punk, of course you can throw money at it because, well, actually no, it was probably a risk at the time. Maybe they didn't know if it was going to be big. It's obviously easy for me to say now, of course it was going to be huge, but actually it's kind of a weird album to go that big when you think about it. But so maybe it is the money that does it, who knows. So yeah, I think that's something to consider with exposure. There's a lot of food for thought in there somewhere, and I've just rambled on for ages. Hopefully some of you can make some sense from that. We started talking about royalties. So as far as I'm aware, the shop would buy the stock, and it was, you know, the gamble was kind of on the shop. So this leads me on to why you had salespeople that would basically want to push that shop to stock things. Now obviously in a more blankety kind of way, certainly the deals I came under, so I was with Intergroove Distribution, and I'm sure Intergroove must have just had deals with HMV where basically, you know, they had such an ongoing relationship for so many years that I think Intergroove kind of knew what HMV could and couldn't sell. And I'm using HMV as an example just because they're a national chain of record stores, by the way. So for anyone that's maybe not from Britain, maybe HMV is a bad example. But yeah, I'm just using that as an example because it's a national chain, and it used to be the most powerful one in Britain by far. And it used to be sort of, you'd walk into pretty much any HMV store, you'd walk into sort of the main commercial bit where you'd find all the top 40s, and like the one in Bristol, for example, I think you'd go upstairs and to the back of the shop and there'd be like 8 decks set up, the Technics SL 1210s, and you'd have to go up to the counter and get the needle, and then you'd just pick up a bunch of records, go over to the deck, fit the needle, play the records, listen on headphones, and if you like it, you buy it. That's kind of how it worked. So it was kind of important for labels and whatever, anyone who wanted to market releases, it's kind of important for them to be front and center of the aisles or the shop or whatever. So like I say, you know, Daft Punk being front and center of at the entrance of the store meant that both Virgin EMI and HMV clearly thought the album was going to do big things, which obviously it did. So yeah, that's that, I think. As far as I'm aware, you'd get your royalties. But the thing is royalties took so long to come through. I honestly, I don't know if I ever questioned whether it was the shop buying it that got me royalties or the shop selling it that got me royalties. I don't know. And I think because maybe I was lucky, maybe I was naive, but because I was with a good distributor, I think they judged it quite well. So I think there was very little wastage. Who knows? Maybe nobody bought any of my records. Maybe they're still there in the shops. Who knows? I don't know. But yeah, I think that's how it worked. So I can see you've written, secondly, a few artists/producers are doing one-to-one sessions via Zoom. I recall that you wanted to do one-to-one sessions in the new studio, and then COVID-19 came along, and I guess that's gone for a big in the short, medium term. Online one-to-one sessions, something you are looking into? Another good question. It's something I'm aware of, and I have had a bunch of people ask me over lockdown period. So I've kind of built this place with a view to potentially having a second person sat in and going through stuff. So I've made it with that in mind. I still think there's probably, forgetting coronavirus for a second, I still think there's a fair way to go in terms of just, I won't go into it, but there's stuff that needs to be done before I'm in a good position for that. But again, there's no rush because coronavirus is still ongoing for the foreseeable future, and I don't know how that's going to change in the future. So it feels like, at the end of the day, we're never going to go down to 0 cases. That's never going to be the case in the world. I don't think we're ever going to eradicate coronavirus. I hope that we do, and I hope that there is a vaccine, but from the science that I've seen so far, it doesn't look particularly likely anytime soon, so who knows. So I think there's that to bear in mind. And I think a lot of people are now kind of going, hey, this online thing kind of works. Let's just do that forever now. So, that's fine. For me, it kind of works probably better doing stuff online anyway, because I probably feel more comfortable doing stuff online than face to face. So for me to do one-to-one sessions on Zoom, like I say, I'm aware of it. I just feel like everything's a bit too chaotic at the minute. Had I built this place and got up and running way before coronavirus, then I would probably be spending most of my time doing these one-to-one sessions right now. But at the minute, everything's kind of a bit up in the air. Plus, with my wife going back to work and the baby in the house and whatever, juggling babysitting and stuff like that. At the moment, we're all between family and extended family trying to fit some sort of routine, and obviously with my wife going back to work, that schedule's a bit chaotic at the minute because, again, no one really knows what they're doing, and working weekends, and is this a permanent thing now? Nobody knows. So I'm going to say I don't know is about as specific as I can get at the minute. And that's exactly what I've been saying to people who have inquired to me directly with stuff like this at the minute. I've just said come back in a couple of months and see where we're at. So it's kind of tricky, but I'm also very aware that a lot of people, certainly viewers of this channel, as an example, there are a lot of people out there who are still in lockdown, and actually now you've got the time, the money, the inclination, and everything's in place. It's a perfect opportunity for you to do these one-to-one sessions and actually really progress with stuff. So yeah, it's definitely something I need to start looking into real soon. So if anyone's watching this and they do want to do one-to-one sessions, then by all means get in touch through the Kane Audio website. I'm pretty sure my email address is on there. Otherwise, it's contact@kaneaudio.com. Yeah, and I don't know what people want, and I think this is why I'm a bit kind of hesitant as well at the minute, is because I don't know if people want, do you want just an hour a week, or do you want a whole day, or do you want regular, weekly, fortnightly? And if so, what the hell do I even charge for that? So yeah, and also I think more specifically, I need to know what people want from it as well. Are they wanting to get nitty gritty technical? Are they wanting the creative side? It's all up for discussion. So yeah, get in touch. That is your questions. Open minds. Hi Dom, hope all's well. It is, thank you very much. Hope it is with you. The first studio video was great. Have of course supported the video. Thank you very much. Keep up the great work. Look forward to next week's video. All the best, unknown artist. Setup. High five. Well, there we go. Yeah, I'm hoping to try and do some more of part 2 today. There's some B-roll and stuff I need to do, so it's coming. And I did say, I think I said at the beginning, I'm looking at the studio build videos being kind of a 3-parter type thing, and I think I'm kind of on schedule for that. So part 2 will be electrics, heating, insulation, bits and pieces, just getting everything plumbed in basically, and then hopefully part 3 will be much more in depth, and probably that's where the money is for you guys. So it'll be acoustics, measurements, tests, options, whatever, stuff like that. So the real music producer nerdy bit. So yeah, there we go. Finally, reality on X. Most right-wing people are not racist. Many are person of colour, as I am. Most of them have friends and family with other race. They might not like LGBT people, and it's okay if people don't like and support certain things. Doesn't mean they're going to kill you. Okay, there's a lot to unpack here. Okay, yeah, definitely not all or not even most right-wing people are racist, and I think that's an important thing to remember for anyone and everyone. As for the LGBT thing, I'm not sure about that. I wouldn't want to say people do or don't like anyone, so I'm just going to skip over that. Just like if you atheist does not mean you destroy temples, churches. Yeah, okay. I don't know if there's too much I want to go into here, because I don't want to get too divisive. While I get that you're trying not to be divisive, I feel like some of the words here could become divisive, and that's not my game. I'm just reading ahead. People can also call them out when they don't like it. Yeah, as much BLM goes, all people believe all lives matter. Yeah, I mean, that's what BLM is, no matter what race. We dislike painting all cops bad and calling whole system racist. I don't think anybody's calling all cops bad, but I do think that certainly in America, the system itself is quite racist, and I think I would be foolish to even consider denying that. I strongly suggest you watch a documentary on Netflix. I think it's called 13 or The 13th or something like that. Yeah, when they are just like us, who are in/with families trying to do their job and go home. Sorry for somewhat rant setup. High five. Yeah, so I think okay, the camera just hit 30 minutes there, and I have no idea whether it got anything I just said. But I was saying that, or you were saying, we dislike painting all cops bad and calling the whole system racist, and I was saying the system kind of is racist. In America, certainly. I mean, it is in many countries, but in the US it's particularly so, and I also said I encourage you to watch a documentary called 13 or The 13 or The 13th, something like that, on Netflix, which explains how the abolishment of slavery basically led to new laws that basically continued slavery but under a different name and in a different guise. So yeah, I'm sure a lot of people will just call it hyperbole, but I think it's something we all need to perhaps understand. So when they are just like us, who are in/with families trying to do their job and go home, and I think the vast majority of them are, and I think most people would agree. However, when you have been brought up being told one thing for your entire life, whether it be right or wrong, then the outcomes of that can be quite different. And so, for example, there are going to be pockets of the US where, because the system leans one way, the people will inherently lean that way too, and they will feel that the system backs them up, therefore they must be right, it must be a fact, that must be the way. Whereas, just because the system says something, just because the laws say something, that doesn't mean it's always ethically correct. So yeah, I don't know. Like I say, I don't really want to get into too much of this because I don't want it to be an ongoing debate. But in the UK, for example, it was 50 years ago, probably not even that long ago, where homosexuality was illegal. Just because that was the law, it didn't make it right. And I think we all know that now. And so I think, it's just something we need to be careful of, I suppose. And I can see you've replied to yourself saying, I have seen most of art/media industries is filled with extreme liberal-minded people. I would like to know, who are these extreme liberal-minded people? Because we normally talk about extremists being, killers and murderers and terrorists and people like that, people who oppress others. I'm not aware of any extreme liberal-minded people who oppress others, other than maybe taking offence a little bit more often than you'd hope for or expect. Try saying one word that oppose their view and you will get shut down. I mean, that's kind of the thing with arguments. And interestingly, I've had some debates with friends about this recently where they say, you just say one thing and you get shut down. I feel like this is an overreaction to an overreaction that was an overreaction, and where do you draw the line? Well, one of you has to take the high road. One of you has to go, okay, fair enough, I'll back away. I don't know. Also, by being shut down, is it impacting your life? I don't know. But please do tell me, who are these art/media industries who are filled with extreme liberal-minded people? Because, I mean, maybe I'm more liberal than I thought or something. I don't know. Maybe I'm an extreme liberal. I don't know. But I just don't see any extreme liberal-minded people out there. I don't know. Maybe I'm completely wrong. I don't know. I think a job should never be to judge with their political beliefs, even if it's a DJ gig. That's fine, but that is your political belief and you are allowed to believe that. So that's kind of ironic. Because are you judging people who have political beliefs for their political beliefs? Do you get what I'm saying? And this is what I mean about the overreaction to an overreaction to an overreaction, is where do you draw the line? So maybe if you think that you shouldn't judge people based on their political beliefs, part of that is allowing other people to have their political beliefs, and to judge others is to be non-judging. So yeah, that's a weird one to finish on. Yeah, but I get what you're saying. Look, at the end of the day, there's a huge part of me that thinks, can't we all just keep our mouths shut and just live and let live? But the problem is there are lots of people out there who do not live and let live, and it's up to us to stand up and go, whoa, hang on a second, you guys need to shut up, and you guys need to just calm down a minute, and it's up to us, the silent ones, to actually speak up now. And I think we're at that point where we've gone on for years of populism where people on this side are being mouthy and just shouting their opinions, and people on this side are shouting their opinions and going, you're wrong, no you're wrong, no you're wrong. And the fact is both of these people kind of want the same things at the end of the day, but they're just not willing to fit in the middle. And the reason they're not willing is because of the populism and because of the general sweeping statements of saying things like, if you're right wing, you're racist, or if you're left wing and in the art media, you're an extreme liberal minded people saying one word that opposes their view, you will get shut down. Do you see what I'm saying? They're not too far apart. So you spent the first half of your comment saying right wing people are not racist, and then you spent the second half of your comment saying most art media industries is filled with extreme liberal minded people. So you're saying that you're being tarred with one brush while tarring others with the same brush. So do you see what I'm trying to get at? And I think this is where we're at politically in the world, is the whole world is just so divided right now. And in America, in the US, it's probably more than ever before. You either love Trump or you hate Trump. There doesn't seem to be anyone in the middle who thinks, well, he's not bad. I mean, I know that sounds like a crazy opinion, but we're just at that point where everything is so extreme. But we're now getting to a point where everyone thinks everyone is extreme, and it's where do we draw the line? I don't know where we draw the line. But the one thing I will say is, just to finish on the BLM note, nobody's condoning rioting or anything like that, or looting. Nobody's condoning that. But I do understand frustration and anger is there, and I do understand that the frustration and anger has come from a genuine place. And if you think all lives matter, then you do think Black Lives Matter. So shut the fuck up with your all lives matter stuff and just admit, so Black lives do matter then. And if you disagree with Black Lives Matter, then again, look at things like the police killings per capita per country and compare it to other countries, because you may have been brought up with inherent beliefs that people of a certain race, gender, whatever, commit certain crimes in certain areas, and that may or may not be true. But you've then got to ask, well, why is that? And is it perhaps because the system has pushed entire cultures into that? And if that's the case, then of course that's going to be the result. But if you look at things like police killings per capita, per race, per country, and compare it to other countries, it's vastly different. So I think, the numbers are there to be seen. And I think we all need to kind of just do something about it. And I don't know what that thing is. I'm not the right person to ask, but I get your point. I agree with some of it. I disagree with some of it. And I still wish you well, because I don't want to be divisive. So there we go. And also, I think, you say about how DJs and producers shouldn't have their political opinions, or shouldn't make their political opinions publicly known. Again, ironically, you've just publicly posted your political opinions while asking me about my political opinions. So, maybe we should. But I think we should also be more understanding to others that, if I speak to someone who's right or left wing or whatever, I shouldn't just assume that they are one thing or another. And I think we're all guilty of that, more in the last couple of years than ever before. We're all really guilty of that. We hear someone who says, they support the Democrats or Labour or whatever your left-wing party is in your country, and you just instantly assume that, they must be, fixated on identity politics or whatever. And actually, they're probably not. They're probably not even aware of half of the things going on. And equally so, if you hear about, in Britain, for example, if you hear about someone who voted for Brexit, so many people jump on, well, you must be racist. I don't know. There we go. That's that. I don't know what more I can say. So, yeah, there we go. Thank you very much for reaching the end of my... today's just been huge long rants, hasn't it? So let's be honest. If you've made it this far in, then you deserve a medal, because it has just been nothing but rants. If you want a high five in next week's episode, comment the word test, because someone has posted a video saying, I'm doing my bike test, learning to wheelie. Okay, that's Living Life Fast. I highly recommend that channel if you are into fast cars. Big shout out to Ricky, who runs that channel. Lovely guy. So there we go. That is it for this week. I can already feel the temperature is rising, so now I'm going to open the doors and the windows and start editing this. Have a good weekend, and I'll see you this time next week. As usual, please do share this video with all of your producer friends. If you're in any forums, any Facebook groups, any whatever, share this video, post it in there. Get people to ask questions, because I do feel like, especially during quarantine, and I have said this on a couple of the videos, I'm aware that lots of people's lives are just completely upside down right now, and nobody knows whether they're coming or going. And so I'm not expecting too many comments or too many questions or that many views on these videos. But I also don't want this to just run dry and then me just sit here for half an hour looking at you going, so any questions? So yeah, I don't know. I assume, and I have always assumed, that at some point these videos will come to a natural end. I don't want that to be right now. I'm fairly sure you guys don't want that to be right now. So yeah, please share the video as much as you can. Like I say, in producer groups, forums, whatever. Yeah, that's that for now. See you same time next week. Cheers.